Hey guys, welcome back. This is part 2, the ball joint installation on the 2001 GMC Yukon. And if you came here from the previous video, you saw how I removed the ball joints, what went into that, etc. Now I'm going to show you what's required to install the new ball joints into the vehicle. It's pretty much the reverse of what we did to remove them, but there's a few things you got to do differently, and I'm going to show you that in this video. Let's talk about the type of ball joints I'm using here. These are Terrain Tough TTX ball joints. Some of you may have heard of these, maybe not. For those who haven't heard of them, this is a really tough, really well-built ball joint. And how do I know that? I know because we've used these. When I worked as a technician, we had a series of a bunch of buses. There were Ford E450 cutaway vans that they used as shuttles. And they ate ball joints like crazy. I mean, these buses would go through a set of factory Motorcraft ball joints within 50 to 60,000 miles. It was absolutely insane. So we had a parts supplier stop by, and he said, you guys really ought to try these Terrain Tough TTX ball joints. And at first I'm thinking, yeah, whatever. He's just trying to sell me something. Somebody's getting paid to promote something, whatever it is. And so he showed me a cutaway. He had 3 different types of ball joints. He had Motorcraft, he had Moog, he had one other type, I can't remember, maybe it was AC Delco or something, and then he had these. And when I saw how the inside of these ball joints were designed, it really kind of opened my eyes to this, and I thought, wow, maybe this is something that might work better. And I mean, right off the bat, you look at these ball joints here, how many ball joints have this? This is a little hole that allows the air to escape out of the boot, enables grease to take its place. They also have little dust caps that go over the grease fittings that you put on this vehicle, so no dust, debris, or dirt or anything gets in the grease fittings. You just don't see this on other ball joints, not to mention cheap ones don't even have grease fittings. Should you pump too much grease into the ball joint, it comes out of a little hole here and you don't blow this rubber boot out. And by the way, this rubber boot is very tough and very thick. We put some of these on our shuttle buses. Some of these shuttle buses now have 140 and 150,000 miles on them. Not a single one of these ball joints has been replaced. Here's the best part about this though. When I bought these parts, they were the same price as the factory AC Delco ball joints that went on this Yukon here. So I thought, why not? So let's get started. Let's put these ball joints on. Now, when installing the new ball joints, if you remember in the previous video I had about the removal, you want to make sure that you take note of which ball joint is going to be installed first. As you saw in the removal video, if you've watched it, my ball joint tool had to go through the bottom opening on the lower control arm here. So that tells me that I'm going to probably want to install the upper ball joint first so I can get the tool through here. Then after the upper ball joint is installed, I'll come back and press the lower ball joint into place. Now, when installing new ball joints, it's really important to be very careful with paying attention to how you're installing these. The old ones, who cares if you break them? They're getting replaced. The new ones, you don't want to mess up, obviously. So you want to make sure, first off, that you never press the ball joint on the stud here, as that can mess the ball joint up. You always want to press on the housing here that's actually going to be seated in the control arm. The other thing you want to make sure that you don't make the mistake of doing is using too short of a cup. As you can see, this ball joint's going to be pressed in about another ½ inch. If I use this cup, this stud here is going to come into contact with the ball joint press and damage the ball joint. So you use a little extension, which the stud can go through here, so that way you don't damage the ball joint when you're installing it. And just like during the removal procedure, I'll do one with an impact and one with a ratchet wrench here. I used a wrench last time, but I'm going to use a ratchet in this one since the installation process is a little bit more challenging. You got to have more torque on here, that's why I got a long wrench. But just to give you an idea of what both of them look like. There's one ball joint installed. And of course, don't forget to install your little snap ring. A little bit different setup with this ball joint. As you can see, we're going to be pushing it up from the bottom into the control arm. Again, you don't want to push on the stud of the ball joint or you can damage it. So you use a cup that fits on the sleeve like so, and then you'll be able to press it up into the control arm. And there you go. Make sure you have these ball joint stud nuts easily accessible when you reinstall the spindle. So I'm going to set those right over here. Now initially when you're getting everything lined up like this, just get it hand tight so that it holds it in place. Then once you've got everything lined up, go back and tighten it up good and tight with a wrench or an impact. Now one thing to keep in mind is even after you've tightened the ball joint nuts, you may have to turn them a little bit more to get the little openings on the nut to line up with the hole going through the stud for your cotter pin. Just like that. Same to the lower ball joint. And there you go. Now here's a tip for you. You can make this easier by installing the grease fitting before you put the spindle back on, because what happens is the axle shaft gets in the way a little bit. But I was still able to sneak it in there, and now I just got to tighten it back up. Now before you put the wheel back on, make sure you get a grease gun and put a couple pumps of grease into the ball joints so they're well lubricated. Now remember how we pried the brake calipers back? That's going to cause the pedal to go to the floor as the pistons expand back out of the calipers. So after you start the vehicle, pump the brake pedal a few times. It'll go to the floor and then it'll start to build pressure. That way you won't back out of the garage and not have any brakes. And I would recommend having an alignment done after these ball joints are replaced. While we didn't really change any measurements like camber or caster, it's always good to have an alignment done just to make sure that your tires are wearing right and not anything getting off in the first place. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. That's the installation procedure of the ball joints. As always, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. If you didn't, tell me what I did wrong. I appreciate your guys' feedback, I really do. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.